Good morning. Thank you, everyone, for coming and tuning in to our ALMA Book Buzz. We'll get started here in a few moments. Just let people into the room. Looking good. Oh, this is fun. It feels like ages since we did the last one. So I'm very happy to be here, and I'm glad you all are too. So thank you. All right. All right. I'm just going to put the link to our Edelweiss catalog in the chat, and that will be put in the chat periodically throughout the course of our program. But I think we'll get started here. Welcome to our ALMA Book Buzz. I am Annie Mazes. I work with Melissa Nicholas as part of the Hachette Book Group, focusing on our Workman Publishing titles. Very important key information here is this link, which I did put in the chat. It is case sensitive, but it will take you to the Edelweiss collection of all of the books that you hear about today. There are almost 130 of them, so sit tight and we are going to get started right now. Oh, one note that I forgot. Chris Vicari is going to be the man of the hour right now. If you are interested in doing a virtual book buzz to your library, to your librarians, if you want to get your system librarians together, however that looks to you, please reach out to Chris. He's going to put his email in the chat. And if it's something that we can get together and make possible, we will try to make that happen. So I'm going to kick us off. This is me. I'm Annie. Please feel free to reach out to me. Email me if you have any questions. If I have any ARCs of anything, I'm happy to send them. The first book I'm going to talk about today is Ejaculate Responsibly. This is a series of 28 accessible and funny arguments reframing the abortion issue. Gabriel Blair definitely makes the case for moving the abortion debate away from controlling and legislating women's bodies, and instead directs the focus on men's lack of accountability in preventing unwanted pregnancies. Gabriel has a tremendous following. She is the founder of Alt Summit and DesignMom.com. She's a Mormon with 6 children. She crosses the political divide. She doesn't mean to make this divisive, just a new approach to a very difficult topic to talk about. American Roots is an inspiring celebration of the wide-ranging styles that define the American modern garden. It's revealed through the home gardens of 20 of the most important designers and creatives working today. This is lushly photographed and covers all regions of the country. It will guide and encourage anyone to dig more deeply into their own home gardens. Love this book, this memoir by Rabia Chaudhry, who is the co-host of Undisclosed, the most popular wrongful conviction podcast in the world. She now turns her incredibly intelligent, piercing eye to her own life. It's a memoir that offers readers relatable and powerful voice that dispenses with the politics and gets to what every woman who has ever struggled with their weight will relate to. It has received a Kierkegaard review. I Am the Light of the World is by acclaimed author Michael Parker. It tells the story of one decision that irrevocably changes the life of a 17-year-old Earl. He meets Tina, who then disappears. Earl is subsequently wrongfully charged for her death, and he is sent to 40 years in prison. When he gets out, he desperately tries to seek a new rhythm in life, but his past comes back to endanger what he is building. This is for fans of Ron Rash and Rachel Kushner. Next is Factory Girls, which is getting huge acclaim, 2-star reviews so far. It's from the author of Big Girl, Small Town. It is another hilarious, perceptive novel set in Northern Ireland during the Troubles in the early 90s. It is perfect for readers of Douglas Stewart, Roddy Doyle, and Anna Burns. Very excited for Moonrise Over New Jessup, which is a beautiful debut novel that won the Penn Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction. It is thought-provoking about a young Black woman doing whatever it takes to protect all that she loves at the beginning of the civil rights movement in Alabama. This is for readers of The Vanishing Half and Robert Jones Jr.'s The Prophets. Next is The Great Escape, an eye-opening, emotional page-turner that exposes our treatment of immigrants and the fallout from globalization. It's an astonishing story of 500 foreign workers from India lured to the United States under false pretenses and entrapped in near slavery conditions, is told by a visionary labor leader who devised a plan that would ultimately win these men citizenship. Sackett, Sony, and Jamila Minix will both be at Library Journal's Day of Dialogue if you plan on attending. And finally, we have Home Detox. From cleaning products to mattresses, furniture, food storage materials, and more, our homes are filled with hidden toxins that can contribute to chronic health conditions. Professional toxicologist and health writer Daniela Chase offers an enlightening and accessible room-by-room guide to identifying and removing potentially toxic items, along with suggestions for safe, affordable alternatives. That's it from me. Next up, we have Macmillan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Annie. And thank you, everyone, for coming to listen to us this morning. Like you said, I'm Amanda Camarco with Macmillan. You can find us all over the internet, our website, our socials, our newsletter, etc. And I think we do a lot of fun stuff. So definitely check us out. With that, I will get on to the books. First up is What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. Readers, for some reason, love children who lie, and this is one I find particularly juicy. They were 11 when they were attacked in the woods, and their testimony helped put away a serial killer. But now, 22 years later, someone wants to tell the truth about a secret worth killing for. This is Riley Sager's Final Girls meets Megan Miranda's All the Missing Girls with a dash of Megan Abbott and a sprinkle of Jessica Knoll, and great for fans of sarcastic, fierce, damaged, brave heroines worth rooting for. Next is Mame by Jessica George. This is an unforgettable debut about a young British Ghanaian woman as she navigates her 20s and finds her place in the world for readers of Queenie and the Other Black Girl. This debut began as personal diary entries to work through the author's own experiences, and Mame tackles some of the biggest issues of our moment with style and substance: grief, mental health, familial duty, racism, female pleasure, the complexities of love, and the power of friendship. At the same time, this is a classic late coming of age / quarter life crisis story with our heroine struggling to figure out what brings her life meaning and purpose and what she owes to those she loves versus what she herself deserves. At the same time as she's navigating the relatable trials and tribulations of living in a big city, working an entry-level job, and sharing a flat with roommates and online meeting. Next up is The Spite House by Johnny Compton. This is a Southern Gothic ghost story that's the Babadook meets A Head Full of Ghosts. A family on the run accepts a strange offer to be the caretaker of a haunted house. It could be a lucky break if the house doesn't drive them all mad like the previous caretakers. Compton joins authors like Stephen Graham Jones and Sylvia Moreno Garcia in diversifying the horror genre with this debut that combines the blood-chilling scares that horror fans crave, but also a depth of feeling not often seen in horror. Next up is Burnham Wood by Eleanor Catton. The Booker Prize winner is back with a stunningly crafted literary psychological thriller that is Macbeth meets Jane Austen meets Lee Child. A guerrilla gardening group and its founder see opportunity in an abandoned farm, but an enigmatic billionaire also has his eyes on the land for his end times bunker. Can he be trusted? And as their ideals and ideologies are tested, can they trust each other? This is all about intentions, actions, and consequences, and it is an unflinching examination of the human impulse to ensure our own survival. Next up is Red Queen by Juan Gomez Jurado. This is an international thriller translated from Spanish and the first in a trilogy that has sold over 2 million copies in Spain. It introduces one of the most compelling and original detectives since Lisbeth Salander. It's a reclusive genius and a disgraced police officer have to team up to solve a ritualistic murder. It'd be great for fans of Jeffrey Deaver's Lincoln Rhyme series, Michael Connelly's The Dark Hours, or even Netflix's series Money Heist. Plus bonus, there is an Amazon series based on this trilogy coming in 2023. Next up is Beyond That, the Sea by Laura Spence Ash. A young girl is sent away by her parents when London starts getting bombed during World War II, and she joins a new family in Boston, and she thrives there. She grows to love it. But when the war ends, she is abruptly called back home. And this is the story of her navigating her lives on both sides of the Atlantic. With beautiful writing and exploring all the many facets of love, this will be great for fans of Lilac Girls, Major Pettigrew's Last Stand, and Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. And last for me is The Secret Diaries of Charles Ignatius Sancho by Patterson Joseph. This is a lush and immersive debut novel of adventure, artistry, romance, and freedom set in 18th century London and inspired by a true story. It is 1746, and Georgian London is not a safe place for a young Black man, especially one who has escaped slavery. So how does the same Charles Ignatius Sancho meet the king, write and play highly acclaimed music, become the first Black person to vote in Britain, and lead the fight to end slavery? And this is his story. Hand this to fans of My Monticello, The Other Bennet Sister, or Caitlin Greenidge's Liberty. And that is it for me. Thank you all so much for listening in. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or requests. And I will share the bit.ly link to the rest of today's titles so you can find more information. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. It's Virginia Stanley from HarperCollins. A few housekeeping slides, Annie, if you could just go through those quickly. Just go, go, go. There we go. Hey, hey, ho. Keep going. Yeah. All right. Small World, Laura Zigman. Who read Separation Anxiety? Everyone. Who loved it? Everyone. Well, now she's back with Small World. Her books are always based on painful and sometimes comical stages of life that she and frankly many of us go through. And in Small World, Laura Zigman introduces us to Joyce, who a year after her divorce is settling into being single again. And when her older sister Lydia, also divorced, calls to tell her she's moving back east from LA after almost 30 years away, Joyce invites Lydia to move into her Cambridge apartment temporarily. But she stays a bit longer than she thought she would. And instead of forging a bond that they always dreamed of having, their relationship phrased, they rarely discuss the loss of their sister Eleanor, who was significantly disabled and died when she was only 10 years old. New revelations from their family's history come to light. It's a terrific book. The author wrote this from a place of a deep connection to the material. She now has one living sister, but another sister who had been disabled died at a young age. This is a fictionalized world, small world, but the author found a way into navigating the emotional landscape of her own family. I love, love, love this book so much. Next. The Librarian of Burned Books by Brianna Lubescus. This is historical fiction based on the true story of the Council of Books in Wartime, the World War II organization founded by booksellers, publishers, librarians, and authors to use books as weapons in the war of ideas. So we meet three different women. American writer in Berlin in 1933, Althea James. She does this exchange program in Germany, and she finds herself drawn to this group of resistors. Then in Paris, 1936, Hannah Brecht. She escapes Berlin for Paris, but realizes that there's anti-Semitism everywhere, and she throws herself into the work at the Germany Library of Burned Books. And then in New York in 1944, we meet Vivian Childs, who is trying to prevent a senator's attempts to censor the Armed Services Edition, which were portable paperbacks that were shipped by the millions to soldiers overseas. And the only way to win this battle is to counter the senator's propaganda with a story of her own, and at the heart of which lies the reclusive and mysterious woman tending the American Library of Nazi-banned books in Brooklyn. So the fates of these three women will converge, changing them all forever. There's a library hardcover edition, and this book couldn't be more timely. Next is One Step at a Time by Nathan Chen. This is an inspiring 22-year-old figure skater, his debut memoir. I'm sure you all know who he is, three-time world champion and Olympic gold medalist. It's an emotionally riveting book that follows this Olympic skater for his trajectory from a toddler on skates in Salt Lake City through a devastating collapse at the 2018 Games and then a glorious victory this year. It's a look at first-generation family with extraordinary parents who came here from China, and it very much focuses on the mother-son bond and how his mother was his nurturer, his supporter, and at times his coach and biggest cheerleader. It was never always easy. The voice is young and yet mature, and you learn a lot about his family, his coaching, and how he soared to greatness. And the last book is Anywhere You Run by Wanda Morris. I absolutely love this book. If you didn't read All Her Little Secrets, which by the way was a #1 library reads pick and a runaway bestseller, go back and read that, and then read this one, which is such a page turner. It gets you from page one. And it's set in 1960s Jim Crow, Mississippi, and it's about two sisters on the run. One from the law because she's killed a man in self-defense. I'm not ruining anything for you. That's set up in the very beginning. And the other sister is pregnant and unmarried. So she's running from social shame. They leave Mississippi. One moves to Georgia, the other goes north to Ohio. Despite the two locations, they both see how the situation is mostly still the same for Black people of the era. This is such a powerful page turner. I cannot emphasize enough what an important read this is. So those are the books from me, and I thank you all so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Dooley and I will be presenting for Bloomsbury today. Up first, here is a quick one-liner on some upcoming titles. The House of Fortune is the enchanting standalone companion novel to the New York Times bestseller The Miniaturist, which has sold over 2 million copies worldwide. In the Mouth of the Wolf is a gripping expose of Mexican government corruption after the murder of a female journalist. I Want to Die, But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki is the intimate therapy memoir recommended by global boyband sensation BTS. And Today a Woman Went Mad in the Supermarket is the career-spanning short story collection from Wilma Hollitzer, and it is now out in paperback. So let's get started. Illuminations. Alan Moore is a New York Times best-selling author and one of the most influential writers in the history of comics. You might know his work such as V for Vendetta and Watchmen. In his first ever short story collection, which spans 40 years of work, Moore presents a series of wildly different and equally unforgettable characters. Neil Gaiman is calling this a wonderful collection, brilliant and often moving. We're very excited for this one. Next, please. Memoirs is a political thriller with the substance of a rigorous history. Memes have long been dismissed as inside jokes with no political importance. Nothing could be further from the truth. Memes are bedrock to the strategy of conspiracists such as Alex Jones, provocateurs like Milo Yiannopoulos, white nationalists like Nick Fuentes, and tacticians like Roger Stone. While the media and most politicians struggle to harness the organizing power of the internet, the Red Pill right weaponizes memes, pushing conspiracy theories and disinformation into the mainstream, and gets people off their keyboards and into the streets and onto the steps of the US Capitol. This is the astonishing story of how extremists are pulling our culture and politics to the far right. And it's a warning that if we fail to recognize these powerful undercurrents, the great meme war for the soul of America will soon be won. Next, please. Before the Brontes and Jane Austen, the literary world celebrated another pair of sisters, Jane and Anna Maria Porter. These self-made single women famously published 26 books, but history has forgotten the Porters. Instead, credit went to their childhood friend, Sir Walter Scott, and they fell into obscurity. Now, Guggenheim Fellow Professor Lauser reintroduces these sisters to the world, from Anna Maria publishing her first book at age 14 in 1793, to Jane's fall from fame, to the sisters desperately auctioning their family archive. Sister Novelists is the groundbreaking biography of two pioneering geniuses in historical fiction and perfect for fans of Prairie Fires and the Peabody Sisters. Next, please. And here is a quick overview of some exciting titles we have. China After Mao, España, and The New Yorkers take new and insightful looks at history. This ranges from a study of China after the impact of Mao, to an expansive history of Spain, to 31 little-known but unforgettable characters of New York City. We also have 3 delicious cookbooks coming out this season from The Weekend Cook, which Stanley Tucci calls a vital addition to any cook's kitchen, to Is This a Cookbook? From Michelin-starred chef Heston Blumenthal, and to Bliss on Toast from the Great British Bake Off judge Prue Leith. You can find Mad Woman in bookstores now, and keep an eye out for Kin coming out in paperback next week. And next. Thank you so much for tuning in today and for always supporting our books. Feel free to email me directly at lauren.dooley@bloomsbury.com to request galleys, and thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. This slide has all of my contact information. Next slide. So to hear about some of our fall highlights, I hope you will watch the recording of the Booklist webinar from August 16th, and I'll put a link in the chat. Next slide. For even more fall highlights, you can see more about these titles on the ALMA Book Buzz from May. And next slide. I just want to remind you that Library Reads votes for Dinosaurs by Lydia Millett are due by September 1st. And next slide. Votes for Saha are due by October 1st. And next slide. Also October 1st due date for votes for The Wintering Place, which is a historical fiction by Kevin McCarthy. And next slide. So our winter 2023 catalog was just posted on Edelweiss earlier this week, and this will be the beginning of celebrating Norton's 100th anniversary. If you didn't know, Norton is an independent publisher and we are employee owned. The company was incorporated by William Warder Norton and Mary Norton in November of 1923. We'll be celebrating all year long, and we're thrilled to continue to bring you our usual mix of high quality fiction and nonfiction. Next slide. After Sappho by Selby Wynne Schwartz was just longlisted for the Booker Prize. This debut novel reimagines the intertwined lives of feminists at the turn of the 20th century. The writing is experimental but accessible, and it should appeal to people who like to read mythological retellings as well as fiction about real people. And it will be published in the US in January. Next slide. This Other Eden is the new novel by Pulitzer Prize winner Paul Harding. This is historical fiction that tackles the legacy of post-Civil War Black communities, eugenics, and eviction on one exceptional island off the coast of Maine. Harding will be a speaker at the Library Journal Day of Dialogue on October 20th, so I hope you will sign up for that. Next slide. Ghost Season by Fatin Abbas is a debut novel set in Sudan. Amidst the paradoxes of identity, art, humanitarian aid, and a territory riven by conflict, these unforgettable characters must forge bonds stronger than blood, ethnicity, and nation. And next slide. Last on His Feet is a poetic graphic novel biography of the boxer Jack Johnson, offering front row seats to the historic showdown between Johnson and Jem Jeffries. Artist Youssef Dawoodi and poet Adrian Mateka mix dramatic boxing action with vivid flashbacks to reveal how Johnson, the self-educated son of emancipated slaves, reached the pinnacle of sports, all while facing down a racist justice system. And on the next slide, Dan Egan will be at LJ Day of Dialogue on October 20th to discuss his new book, The Devil's Element. In this major work of explanatory science and environmental journalism, Pulitzer Prize finalist Dan Egan investigates the past, present, and future of phosphorus, which has been called the oil of our time. Next slide. Phil Plait will be on the same panel with Dan Egan at Day of Dialogue. Under Alien Skies is armchair travel through the universe, letting you visit the faraway places we currently experience only through high-powered telescopes and robotic emissaries. Next slide. For a dose of satire and humor mixed with history, some real and some fake, you'll want to check out Alexandra Petrai's U.S. History. Her new work of historical humor uses imagined documents to create an irreverent takedown of our nation's complicated past. Petrai is a widely read columnist for The Washington Post. She has been on NPR's Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, profiled in Cosmopolitan, Rolling Stone, Forbes, and more. Next slide. The Dream Builders is coming from Tin House Books. Written from the perspectives of 10 different characters, Mukherjee's incisive debut novel explores class divisions, gender roles, and stories of survival within a society that is constantly changing. Her story of one small town in India is full of ambition, longing, and love, and bitter loss that asks what it really costs to try and build a dream. And on the next slide, Murder Book is the new standalone novel from Thomas Perry, coming in January from Mysterious Press. Perry is the author of the Jane Whitefield series, and his book, The Old Man, was the basis for the Hulu show starring Jeff Bridges. Murder Book is signature Thomas Perry with characters you won't soon forget, crisply described action sequences, and a tense plot that will keep you racing through the pages. Next slide. Please sign up for the Norton Library newsletter, where I do all of my print ARC giveaways. I will put the link in the chat. We also have many digital ARCs on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and we'll be adding more of the winter DRCs as soon as they become available. Thank you again for listening, and thank you, Annie and Emily at Sourcebooks, for setting all of this up. Talk to you later.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Casterly. Thanks for taking the time today to hear about what's new at Blackstone Publishing. Today, I'm going to go over our top titles for the rest of the year. First up, we have God Family Country by Craig Morgan and Jim DeFelice. Craig Morgan is the chart-topping country music star behind hits like Redneck Yacht Club, and That's What I Love About Sunday. And he shares all aspects of his life in this powerful new autobiography. Blake Shelton has praised the book, saying, like his music, Craig Morgan's memoir will move you. I was inspired by Craig's journey, his many surprise accomplishments, and the way he has trusted his values to guide him through the highs and lows of his remarkable life. Good Morning America is running a segment about Craig and the book, and People Magazine is running an exclusive interview with Craig and an exclusive excerpt, and that is all happening today. And the book comes out September 27th. Next is Imposter by Brady Godfrey. Two Sisters, A Lifetime of Secrets. This is a wonderful debut novel from a new voice in thriller fiction. It's gotten a great quote there from Lisa Unger, calling it a must read. Mary Kubica said it is everything a psychological thriller should be, spine-chillingly, jaw-droppingly good. And this one releases on September 13th. Next is River Woman, River Demon by Jennifer Given. When Eva's husband is arrested for the murder of a friend, she must confront her murky past and embrace her magic to find out what really happened that night on the river. This is perfect for fans of Mexican Gothic, and this psychological thriller weaves together folk magic and cultural empowerment. Given is an award-winning Mexican-American and Indigenous writer, and she's the author of Jubilee and Trinity Sight, which are also available from Blackstone and had lots of accolades and awards when they came out. Next, we have The Zero Night by Brian Freeman. This is the 11th book in the Jonathan Stride series. After taking a long leave of absence from the Duluth police, Jonathan Stride is back to help a lawyer find his kidnapped wife. But all may not be what it seems, and Stride must find out if the worried husband may actually be the mastermind behind the kidnapping. Brian Freeman has a very strong fan base, so we're excited to have him working with us on the new titles in this series. And this one is coming out November 1st. Next is NYPD Red 7, The Murder Sorority by Marshall Karp. This is the new book in the NYPD Red series, which was originated by Karp and James Patterson. A network of professional assassins is on the loose in New York City, and it's up to the Red team to find them. James Patterson has endorsed the book, saying he can't wait to see where Marshall takes the characters next. I also want to mention Snowstorm in August, which was Marshall Karp's other recent novel. It's an old school, over-the-top, lethal weapon style adventure and would be a perfect late summer read for thriller or action fans. Next is Ezra Exposed. This is the debut middle grade novel from renowned legal commentator and children's advocate Amy E. Feldman. As entertaining as it is informative, Ezra Exposed provides a vital message to middle graders and their parents on how to navigate the perils of kids sexting today. Besides having an engaging story that kids will relate to, this is going to be a great teaching tool for parents and educators. This one releases November 1st. Next is Elvis and Me by Priscilla Bulow Presley. This intimate memoir reveals the story of Elvis and Priscilla Presley told by the woman who lived it. Here in her own words, Priscilla tells the story of their love, revealing the details of their life together and their unbreakable bond that has remained long after his tragic death. This was a New York Times bestseller when it was originally published in 1985, and we're making it available for the first time in ebook and audio. And the audiobook is read by Priscilla Presley. She did a really great narration for us, and we're honored that we were able to work with her to tell her story. She's been doing a lot of promotion around the book as well. It's just a really great narration. It's also timely with the new Elvis movie directed by Baz Luhrmann. And the book also has been optioned by Sofia Coppola for a direct movie tie-in at some point in the future. This one released yesterday. Then we have a couple of audio-only titles I wanted to call out. The Silent Woman by Minka Kent. Newlywed Jane Westmore has finally found a husband, only there's a caveat. Behind the gates of their estate lives his first wife, Sylvie. And on a slip of torn notebook paper, Sylvie has a message for Jade: run. So this is kind of in the vein of Bronte or Rebecca. So just a really fun thriller releasing next month. And we also have The Devil's Delight. MC Beaton's cranky, crafty Agatha Raisin is back on the case in Devil's Delight. In this installment, Tony and Agatha are in the car on the way to a wedding when, much to their shock, a naked young man bursts through the hedge on the side of the road and comes running toward them. Terrified, he explains that he has seen a dead body in the woods. That one is releasing in December. And finally, we have all of our contact information there, so please reach out for galleys or if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, and thanks as always to Annie and everyone at Sourcebooks for arranging our get-together today. I am Chris Ficcari of Union Square and Company, formerly known as Sterling Publishing, and I'm going to remind you about 3 fall fiction titles on the next slide. For fans of The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper, it is time for book number 2 in the trilogy from Pompeii. It's The House with the Golden Door, out in just a couple of weeks, featuring our main character named Amara and her incredible will not only to survive, but thrive in a far from ideal world. In Wrath, a genetically enhanced lab rat named Sammy escapes into the world and scares the heck out of everyone. And in a starred review book list just called The Broken Blade, the debut novel by Melissa Blair, quote, a rich fantasy world full of magic, romance, danger, and intrigue. Oh my, folks, the book talk world has erupted over this title. Book 2 will follow in spring 2023. Adding a drop-in on the next slide for the fall in October is You Don't Know What War Is, the diary of a young girl from Ukraine by Yiva Skalietska. She turned 12 years old on February 14th of this year. She's living in the city of Kharkiv. 10 days later, February 24th, Russia invaded Ukraine. She and her family ran to a basement bunker, lived through bombings and violence, and it's there she began writing a diary, the entries of which are here and will resonate around the world as she experiences the war firsthand and flees the country while noting the mental and physical challenges she had to endure and fears for family members left behind. It's an important, harrowing, and ultimately hopeful memoir by a very brave young woman who now lives in Ireland. On the next slide, back to fiction, The Daughters of Madurai, a powerful debut from a woman born in India and raised in Australia named Rashri Veriyar. It's the story of 2 women. One is Janani, a young mother in a poor family in Madurai, which is a state in southern India, who in 1992 is told she is useless if she cannot produce a son, or worse, if she bears daughters. They let her keep her first baby girl, but the rest are taken away as soon as they are born and killed. Her story is juxtaposed with that of Nyla in Sydney, Australia, 2019. She has a secret that she's been keeping from her parents, but when she joins her parents on a trip to Madurai, it's a decision that changes her life forever. While this novel educates about the, believe it or not, still around issue of female infanticide around the world, it's also a universal story about the bond between mothers and daughters and the power of love in overcoming all obstacles. Think of it for readers of The Henna Artist or Pachinko, and it will publish this upcoming spring. Next, get your Hitchcock fix with Not So Perfect Strangers, an updated homage to Hitchcock's Strangers on a Train, about 2 women who come from different neighborhoods but discover that each has a husband she would be better off without. These ladies want to help each other out their marriages, but they have very different ideas of what that means, putting them on a collision course to a sinister, shocking conclusion. It's tart, it's twisted, and it's written by L.S. Stratton, a former finalist for the NAACP Image Award in Literary Fiction and the author of 20 novels. Next slide, please. In nonfiction, it's on brand. Eliza Licht, author of Leave Your Mark, a book that is often ranked in the lists of best career development books, knows that success relies heavily on the power of your personal brand. And now, with more people than ever working for themselves as entrepreneurs or influencers or side hustlers, one has to consider the impression they are making and what's out there for all to see. She will share her personal journey in rebuilding herself, speak to why having a personal brand matters, how to position yourself in a crowded world, and ultimately feel seen. Next slide. It's good to catch. Valentine Thomas is just your everyday sustainability-focused chef, entrepreneur, world-class spearfisher, global influencer, and now author. And in this gorgeous cookbook called Good Catch, she not only fills it with 75 approachable seafood recipes, she combines message and memoir, cookbook, and culinary adventure structured around the locations where she has tested herself in the deep blue sea. Of course, tips and tricks are here too, like how to cut open a fish, tell if the fish is fresh, what to do with scraps, all so you can consume seafood in ways that will protect our world. If you check her out on Instagram, Valentine Thomas, you can be one of her 300,000 plus followers. And lastly, on the next slide, are you tired? Oh, there's a slider for diving. There you go. Look at that. Lastly, are you tired of that slushy margarita? It makes you wonder if there is actually any tequila in it. Well, treat yourself and patrons to the essential tequila and mezcal companion, and you'll develop appreciation for the history, labor, geography, and industry involved in producing tequila and mezcal. It's a world that continues to evolve. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Rita Ora, George Clooney owning popular brands, folks drinking Palomas all around the country. You can quench your thirst here with more than 30 recipes, 300 tasting notes, in an accessible guide from Tess Rose Lampert, a woman with a deep understanding of the culture surrounding tequila and mezcal. Next slide, please, because those are the books, and that's the way it is on August 24th, 2022. Again, if you're interested in a book buzz for your library, please reach out via email, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you. Have a nice day and get ready for our next speaker.
Hi, everyone. I hope you've been having a great presentation and enjoying all of the titles so far. My name is Melissa Croce, and I'm a marketing manager at S&S, specializing in adult titles. And I'll be presenting a few of our late fall titles for you today. So first up, we have The Secret History Meets Ninth House in the Cloisters by Katie Hayes, a sinister atmospheric novel perfect for spooky season. When Anne Stillwell arrives in New York City, she expects to spend her summer working as a curatorial associate at the Met. Instead, she finds herself assigned to the Cloisters, a Gothic museum and garden renowned for its medieval art collection, and a group of enigmatic researchers studying the history of divination. Desperate to escape her painful past, Anne is happy to indulge the researchers' more outlandish theories about the history of fortune-telling. But what begins as an academic curiosity quickly turns into an obsession when Anne discovers a hidden 15th century deck of tarot cards that might hold the key to predicting the future. When the dangerous game of power, seduction, and ambition at the Cloisters turns deadly, Anne becomes locked in a race for answers as the line between the arcane and the modern blurs. Next, from Matthew Quick, the New York Times bestselling author of The Silver Linings Playbook, comes We Are the Light. Lucas Goodgame lives in Majestic, Pennsylvania, a quaint suburb that has been torn apart by a recent tragedy. Everyone in Majestic sees Lucas as a hero, except Lucas himself. Insisting that his deceased wife, Darcy, visits him every night in the form of an angel, Lucas spends time writing letters to a psychologist. It's only when Eli, an 18-year-old young man from whom the community has ostracized, begins camping out in Lucas's backyard that an unlikely alliance has taken shape, and the two embark on a journey to heal their neighbors and, most importantly, themselves. Next. For historical fiction fans, this is Gilded Mountain by Kate Manning. In a voice full of questions and sly humor, lovable protagonist Sylvie recounts the story of leaving her family's snowbound mountain cabin to work in the local manor house for the Pagets, owner of the marble mining company that employs her father and dominates the town of Moonstone. Sharp-eyed Sylvie is awed by the luxury around her until she gradually realizes that the Pagets' lofty philosophical talk is at odds with the unfair labor practices that have enriched them. Their servants, the Gradys, are descendants of formerly enslaved people and have long known this to be true, and they're making plans to form a utopian community on the Colorado prairie. Outside the manor walls, the town of Moonstone is roiling with discontent. A handsome union organizer, along with the labor leader Mary Harris Mother Jones, is stirring up the quarry workers. The editor of the local newspaper, a bold woman who takes Sylvie on as an apprentice, is publishing unflattering accounts of the Paget Company. Threats of violence permeate the air. When the harsh and dangerous winter brings tragedy, Sylvie must choose between silence and revenge. Next. This is the timely Our Red Book, Intimate Histories of Periods, Growing and Changing, which are essays compiled by Rachel Cotter Nailbuff. After hearing a harrowing coming-of-age story from her great aunt, Rachel started gathering stories about menstruation in her family that had never been told. What began as an oral history project quickly snowballed. Rachel heard from family and friends, and then strangers, writers, experts, community activists, young people, and other visionaries about the most intimate physical transformations in their lives. Our Red Book takes us through stories of first periods, last periods, missing periods, and everything about bleeding that people wish they had been told. Weaving together powerful voices from a variety of leaders, a variety of people, this book invites us on a collective journey of growth and change with Rachel's voice as a guide. And lastly, we have Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse, a fantasy grounded in a Western setting. Rebecca's created a new world in which an epic battle has lasting consequences. When Lucifer fought God and lost, a fallen angel's resting place created a mountain range, and in those mountains was a new element that the people called divinity. When harvest, divinity was the rarest and most precious element in the world, and it could only be harvested by social pariahs known as the fallen. The fallen are descendants of Lucifer's demons, physically marked and unable to hide, living as second-class citizens, while the virtues, descendants of the winners of that war, rule over them. When a member of the fallen is accused of murdering a member of the virtues, the small town of Goetia will never be the same. Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't share some of our resources with you. Feel free to take a screenshot of this slide. Otherwise, I will also drop all of these links in the chat. Explore the Book Drop, a website filled with seasonal personalized recommendations from our staff. Our One Book website for resources on community reads. Sign up for our monthly newsletter so you can be the first to hear about our events, sweepstakes, and new books. And check out our book club favorites page, which has resources for all of your book club needs. That is it for me. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Hello, I'm Melissa Nicholas from Hachette Book Group. Again, I'm in the room with Annie, and that is so fun to be in the room with Annie. I'm going to talk to you about a lot of Hachette's fall 2022 new releases, and then we'll slide into winter 23. We'll start with fiction and sashay over to nonfiction. So next slide, please. N.K. Jemisin, yes, a MacArthur Fellow, and so much more. She's also the first author to ever win 3 consecutive Best Hugo awards for her Broken Earth trilogy. This is the second book in N.K.'s first series set in the real world. This duology is a story of culture, identity, magic, and myths in contemporary New York City. N.K.'s fans have been very patient, and they will be delighted when this new book hits library shelves on November 1st. Next slide, please. Meredith is a deeply wounded character, but she's not depressing. Her determination to lead a full as life as possible while she's trapped inside her home will have everyone cheering for her from the beginning. A traumatic event has made it impossible for Meredith to conceive of leaving her home for 3 years. However, she knows she needs to address this. And this novel, well, I already mentioned trauma, but there's so much heart, and there's baking and humor. It's for fans of Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine. And I'm delighted to say that Claire Alexander will be on the fiction panel at Library Journal's Day of Dialogue on October 20th. Next slide. Hey now, Kennedy Ryan. We're so psyched that she's on the forever list. This is a steamy romance with complex characters and a deep exploration of a couple recovering after a family tragedy. So, can conscious uncoupling lead to conscious coupling? That's suggestive, and that's where I was going. This is ideal for fans of Colleen Hoover, Tia Williams, and Helen Huang. Next slide, please. Oh yes, The Light Pirate. It's a sweeping and hopeful story of survival and resilience, spanning one extraordinary woman's lifetime as she navigates the uncertainty, brutality, and arresting beauty of a rapidly changing world. This novel centered around Wanda. She's named after the hurricane that she was born during. We move from her childhood to adulthood and the changing landscape. Wanda loses family, gains community, and ultimately seeks seeks adventure, love, and purpose in a place that's been remade by nature. Now, you may have some patrons who read that book, Where the Crawdads Sing. Here's a new book for them. Next slide, please. The Sense of Wonder is a gem of a novel in less than 300 pages. There's basketball, visualize a homage of Linsanity. If you know, you know. However, don't let that stop you if you don't. There's Korean drama, which hits close to my ABC soap heart, unrequited love, hero worship, challenges of being a first generation, romance. A coworker recently compared this to Jerry Maguire, and I don't know if there was karaoke in Jerry Maguire. There is in Sense of Wonder. It's a heartwarming story that captures our hearts in a slim volume. And I like big books, and I cannot lie, but it turns out that I like little books too. Matthew's also on a fiction panel at Day of Dialogue in October. Next slide. Snow Hare. I think I heard a collective shout. Millie Mel, please have a World War II novel that's ideally set in Poland. Yes, here. Arlena dreams of becoming a doctor until the war gets in the way, leading her instead to an astonishing love and a fateful choice. We explore motherhood, marriage, consequences, and our incredible human capacity to hope. This is the story of a woman who dares to love and dream and faces impossible odds. Next slide. Oh my gosh, we're at the nonfiction interlude. Okay, Stacey Schiff restores Samuel Adams to his rightful place as a founder of the revolution. He was the colony's leading protagonist, political organizer, and spark plug. His life had 3 acts. First, failure as a business person. Last, mediocrity as a governor and a statesperson. But that middle act, he was stirring things up and led to the shot heard around the world. And it was one of the greatest performances in American history. Next slide. Ghost of the Orphanage. Oh, things are not good, y'all. This is a shocking expose of the dark secret history of Catholic orphanages. Violence, abuse, and even murder took place in their walls, and a call to hold the powerful accountable. This is told with compassion, and it's a gripping story. It reads like a novel, and it's also a reckoning and proof that real evil lurks at the edge of our society, and that if we have the courage, we can bring it into the light and defeat it. Yes. Next slide. The future is analog. The beloved author of The Revenge of Analog lays out a case for a human future and not the false technological utopia we've been living in. For many people, the best part of the quarantine has been the least digital ones, baking bread, playing board games, going hiking. This book suggests that if we want a healthy future, we should choose not convenience, but community, not technology, but humanity. Look, I printed today, see? Okay, next slide, think, yes. In a series of exacting and fierce vignettes, Thomas guides readers through the unceasing cruelty that defined his youth, laying bare the depths of his loneliness and illuminating the vital reprieve geek culture offered him. For readers of Chiesi Lemon and Carmen Maria Machado. And I'm delighted to report that Joseph is on the nonfiction panel at Library Journal's Day of Dialogue on October 20th. Next slide. Thanks for supporting all these authors and their books as well. And the best-selling authors that Annie and I call friends. Thanks for listening. Contact info is here. Many of these are available for digital reading on Edelweiss, and I appreciate your time and attention. Thank you. Read, and share. Any feedback? Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Erica Loberg and I'm a publicist at Soho Press. If you're not familiar with us, we have 3 imprints: Soho Crime, where we publish award-winning crime fiction; Soho Press is our literary fiction imprint; and we have Soho Teen, which publishes YA fiction. I'm going to talk to you about a few of our great upcoming fall adult titles. So with that, I will get started. First up, in just a couple weeks in September, from our literary imprint, we have Sacrificio by Ernesto Mestre-Reed. This is a spellbinding literary masterpiece full of gorgeous poetic writing, intricate storytelling, and a wonderful balance of intimacy and expansiveness. This is set in Cuba in 1998, and it's both a sweeping portrait of a nation in slow economic collapse and a profoundly moving portrait of a young man, Rafa, finding himself as he searches for his missing friend, Renato. This search leads Rafa through Havana, including a mostly abandoned AIDS sanatorium, which is where the government historically quarantined HIV-positive citizens for life, and an unintended consequence was that they created a safe space for queer culture to thrive. Rafa also discovers that his friend Renato is leading a group of HIV-positive counter-revolutionaries who are planning to overthrow the Castro government during the Pope's upcoming visit. There's a lot more to the story as the plot unfolds, but among its standout elements are how this novel depicts queerness in a country where it's only sometimes tolerated, as well as its unique depiction of AIDS, where without diminishing its severity, this deadly disease becomes a fount of community, power, and resistance against an oppressive government. The story unfolds through a mesmerizing method of nested storytelling where we have stories within dialogues within stories, and these interlaced narratives move seamlessly across different moments in the timeline, and as you peel back each layer, you find that each character has multiple identities and agendas. Sacrificio is a passionate symphonic work about queerness and life lived on the margins of a declining society. It's great for readers of queer, Latinx, and historical fiction, and a must read for fans of Rebecca Mackay's The Great Believers. Next. Moving on to our crime imprint, in October, we have Sinister Graves by the amazing Anishinaabe author and arts activist Marcy Rendon. This is the third book in the award-winning Cash Black Bear mysteries, which were previously published by Cinco Puntos Press, but we're so excited to have them on our list at Soho Prime now. We just republished the first two books in paperback. The first one is Murder on the Red River, and the second, Girl Gone Missing. The Cash Black Bear mysteries are set in 1970s Minnesota, and they deftly weave together true Native American history, fast-paced murder mysteries, atmospheric Midwestern settings, and elements of the supernatural with our main character, a tough-as-nails young Ojibwe woman named Cash Black Bear. These books offer a riveting character study of Cash as she navigates life, college, relationships, and independence, all while helping her friend Sheriff Wheaton solve crimes through her intuition and occasional visions. In Sinister Graves, an unknown Native woman's body washes up in the floodwaters, and it sends Cash on an investigation into who this woman was and what happened to her, what happened to the second Native woman whose body is found, and what the story is behind the suspicious unmarked children's graves she finds in a small church graveyard. In this book and series, Marcy excels at writing a really engaging mystery that you want to read in one sitting, and it also brings to light issues that impact Native American people but are largely ignored by our national media and society. In this case, the common disappearances of Native women and the traumatic history of unmarked graves found on boarding school grounds across North America. Cash is such a compelling character with her grit, her intelligence, and her flaws. It's an incredible journey getting to know her and follow her throughout this series. I highly recommend this for fans of mysteries and Indigenous fiction, and you can dive in to the first book or this one as a standalone. Next. Also in October, we have Lady Joker Volume 2, which is the second half of the epic Japanese saga we introduced to amazing acclaim last April in Lady Joker Volume 1. Lady Joker is a hugely important book in Japan, and it's considered the magnum opus of Kaoru Takamura, whose household name in Japan. Volume 2 takes place right where Volume 1 left off, very high stakes. If we rewind a little bit, Lady Joker takes place in Tokyo in 1995, and it follows a group of 5 men from very different backgrounds who are all deeply unsatisfied and struggling through post-war Japan, and they feel resentful of a society that prioritizes corporations over people. So they hatch a plan together to kidnap the CEO of Japan's largest beer company and extort the corrupt investors for money. And then a lot happens from there, which I won't spoil, but this is all based on a real-life unsolved kidnapping by the monster with 21 faces who terrorized Japan for 2 years. Takamura takes this wild, real, true crime event and turns it into a fascinating mystery and intellectual commentary on issues like corporate structures, racism, loss of individuality, the meaning of justice, and so much more. This is especially great for readers of true crime-inspired mysteries, literary translations, epic sagas, and big books. This has a deluxe package also where the the jacket is translucent. You can peel it back to reveal the face underneath, very similar to the first book, and the spines align in a cool design, so they look great together on the shelf. And next, that is all I have for you. My email's on the screen and I'll put it in the chat as well. Feel free to email me with any questions or requests, or you can just go straight to NetGalley and Edelweiss to request these. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, my name is Pamela Osti, and I'm a marketing manager for HTP Books or Harlequin Trade Publishing, and I'm so thrilled to present our forthcoming titles for the fall today. So first up, The Two Lives of Sarah by Catherine Adele West. This goes on sale in a couple of weeks, and some of you may have been lucky enough to meet the lovely Catherine at ALA and pick up a galley. The Two Lives of Sarah was named a HarperCollins lead read of the season. So that's a distinction given to the title that the entire sales force push out in the biggest possible way. So why all the hype? The Two Lives of Sarah is about a young mother living at a boarding house in 1960s Memphis, Tennessee. The world around Sarah starts lighting up. Martin Luther King Jr. is leading the fight for equal rights, and Sarah is drawn into the hope and energy of that time. This story of a resilient woman is filled with the music and cultural references that transport you to Memphis in the 60s. When you read it, it truly feels like you're reading an instant classic. Next up is Miss Del Rio by Barbara Mujica. In the tradition of The Only Woman in the Room and All the Stars in the Heavens, Miss Del Rio is a stunning biographical historical novel about Mexican actress Dolores Del Rio, considered the first major Latina star in Hollywood, who ran with Hollywood's glamorous inner circle during its golden age, including notables such as Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo and Orson Welles, with whom she was romantically linked while he filmed Citizen Kane. She was also friends with Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera and was painted by Diego Rivera. And in her over 50-year career, she acted in both silent and sound films and helped pioneer Mexican cinema's golden age. This thoroughly researched novel captures Dolores's iconic elegance and brash spirit and is narrated by Dolores's fictional hairdresser and friend. This is a beautifully written novel and a great tribute to a trailblazing film star. On the next slide, The Stolen Book of Evelyn Aubrey by Serena Burdick, an exciting new historical novel from Serena Burdick, best-selling author of The Girls with No Names. When Evelyn first married the famous novelist William Aubrey, she was dazzled by his brilliance. But their newlywed bliss is brief when William is gripped by writer's block, and he becomes jealous of Evelyn's writing talent. When he commits the ultimate betrayal, stealing a draft of her novel and passing it off as his own, Evelyn decides to write her way out of their unhappy marriage. Fast forward to 2006, when Evelyn's great-great-granddaughter discovers that Evelyn was the author Evelyn Aubrey, and it leads Abigail on a journey to England in search for answers. There, she learns of Evelyn's shocking disappearance and how London society believes she was murdered. The Stolen Book of Evelyn Aubrey is a delicious page-turner that is part coming-of-age, part literary mystery, part family saga, and gorgeously written. Next, Someday Maybe by Anya Nuabinelli. This is a novel that's very near and dear to us. So in the summer of 2020, our publishing team put a call out for unagented manuscripts by Black authors. It was a way to knock down some barriers to getting published. Out of that call, we got thousands of submissions. And out of those submissions, the very first manuscript we chose to publish is this one. Onyi is a writer born in Nigeria, raised in Glasgow, and now lives in London. She co-founded an organization called Surviving Out Loud that provides survivors of sexual assault with legal assistance, therapy, and relocation. She is amazing. The novel opens with the passage seen on the slide. So you get a sense of the character's strong voice from the opening page. Someday Maybe is a stunning and witty debut novel about a young woman's emotional journey through unimaginable loss, pulled along by her tight-knit Nigerian family, a posse of new friends, and the love and laughter she shared with her husband. Every page of this novel is guaranteed to give you all the feels. And then next up, for something completely different, Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 by Lisa Unger. Lisa Unger is truly one of the reigning thriller writers out there. She is, I think, on par with Ruth Ware or Paula Hawkins and Karen Slaughter. Secluded Cabin Sleep 6 is about three couples who rent an Airbnb in the woods for a weekend of rest and relaxation. But right away, things don't go as planned. The rental owner shows up and is really creepy. There's a storm that knocks the power out in the cabin. And then there are the friends themselves who, it turns out, are keeping secrets from one another that threaten to spill out at any moment. There's tension, the stakes feel high, the characters and the Airbnb scenario feel very realistic. It sounds like an Airbnb that I've rented, actually. The twists are generously spread throughout the book as Lisa ratchets up the tension. So if you like thrillers, I hope you'll dip into this one and really all of Lisa's books. They're so, so good. Next, Before Your Memory Fades by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. You may be familiar with the first book in this series, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, which was a Library Reads pick, an international bestseller, and a massive book talk phenomenon 2 years after publication. We're now sitting at over 1 million copies sold, thanks to one influencer who shared the book on TikTok in tears. And that post has garnered almost 500,000 likes and counting, and led to so many more TikTok shares and an immediate lift in sales. There are sequels to that book, last year's Tales from the Cafe, and this upcoming release is titled Before Your Memory Fades, which follows 4 new customers to the little cafe in Tokyo that allows its visitors to travel back in time. And then finally, Angels of the Resistance by Noelle Salazar. Now, if you attended ALA, you may have met Noelle or heard her speak on the United for Libraries historical fiction panel. You may also be familiar with Noelle's debut novel, the instant bestseller, The Flight Girls, about the little-known Women's Air Force Service Pilots, or WASP program. Either way, Noelle is a gem, and her new novel, Ages of the Resistance, is her incredibly moving Second World War II set novel. This one follows two teenage sisters in the Netherlands who are recruited as part of the Dutch resistance effort against the Nazis. It's inspired by true events. And what I love about Noelle's books is just how she focuses on ordinary young women who become extraordinary heroes. Angels of the Resistance will appeal to fans of Pam Jenoff and Kate Quinn, or really anyone who loves historical or World War II fiction. And then on the next slide, that's it for me. So our contact info is here. Please don't hesitate to reach out at all. And thank you so much for listening.
Hello, I'm Margaret Coffey from Sourcebooks. Greetings from our Chicago area office in all of its splendor. Yes, it does look like a warehouse behind me. I'm looking forward to talking to you about some of our favorite upcoming fall titles. Next slide. So I hope you've had a chance to read some of our wonderful recent backlist landmark titles and onto a few of our new books. From Shauna Robinson, the author of Must Love Books, comes her sophomore title, The Banned Bookshop of Maggie Banks, which follows a new bookseller in a small historical town filled with, of course, quirky characters. Maggie begins hosting underground book club events to fight against a repressive historical society, determined to control the books available in the store. But keeping the club quiet, selling her customers the books they want, you know, the ones from the century, and dodging the historical society is nearly impossible, especially when Maggie unearths a town secret that could upend everything. Next slide. The Mitford Affair is the next novel from New York Times bestselling powerhouse Marie Benedict. This politically charged family drama is set in World War II and follows the 6 Mitford sisters from Great Britain to Germany. Nancy Mitford, a British socialite and novelist, must uncover the extent of her sister's treason when they fall in with Nazi sympathizers and become spies themselves. Next slide. And now moving to our Poison Pen mystery line. And next, for fans of Thomas Harris and Louise Penny, comes a dark and gritty crime thriller from award-winning actor, producer, and director Eric LaSalle, aka Dr. Peter Benton on ER. Laws of Depravity follows 2 New York PD detectives and an FBI agent as they hunt a serial killer who butchers 12 clergymen every 10 years, shedding light on the transgressions of some of the most trusted members of society and raising eye-opening spiritual questions around the blurred lines between good and evil. First in the Martyr Maker series, which James Patterson called all thriller, no filler, a white-knuckled treat. And next, on to nonfiction and a quick look at recent backlist. And then, for readers of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill O'Neill, What the Ear Hears and Doesn't is a fascinating science book for adults that explores the physics principle of frequency and the sometimes weird role it plays in our everyday lives. Find out what do the world's loneliest whale, a black hole, and 23 people doing Tai Bo all have in common. Musician, composer, TV presenter, and educator Richard Mainwaring uses the concept of infinite piano to reveal the extraordinary world of frequency in a multitude of arenas, from medicine to religion to the environment to the paranormal, through the universality of music and a range of memorable human and animal stories laced with dry humor. Next, Windfall details author Erica Bolstad's shock upon learning that she had inherited mineral rights in North Dakota in the throes of an oil bonanza. Determined to unearth the story behind her unexpected inheritance, she follows the trail to her great-grandmother Anna and discovers a darker truth about Anna than her family had ever shared. With journalistic rigor, she discovers a land of boom and bust cycles and families trying their best to eke out a living in an unforgiving landscape, bringing to life the ever-present American question, what does it mean to be rich, and at what cost to the environment and Native culture? And next, about some happily ever after with our Casablanca romance line. Next, You're a Mean One, Matthew Prince is for fans of Alexis Hall and Casey McQuiston. This warm, hilarious, and engaging holiday LGBTQIA+ rom-com comes from author Timothy Janofsky, whose debut novel Never Been Kissed released earlier this year. Young, rich, and thoroughly spoiled, Matthew has no intention of being shipped off to some small town in New England to stay with his grandmother for Christmas or to play nice with the attractive young man he meets there. Find a little joy to the world? Not today, Santa. But when the two are forced to work together to make a charity gala go off without a hitch, Matthew may find the home he's been missing all along. Next, and finally indulge in the high heat dark fantasy of our upcoming Bloom Books titles. Next, Queen of Myth and Monsters is the new book in an epic fantasy series, Adrian and Isolde, by bestselling beloved author and former librarian Scarlett St. Clair. Isolde and Adrian have finally found a balance between them, but just as their love seems to be on solid ground, the machinations of two opposing goddesses leave them fighting for their love and their lives. Scarlett will be attending Library Journal Day of Dialogue, so look for her there. Next slide. Take a quick peek at some of our new Bloom titles coming this fall from our best-selling authors. And please visit our website to look at other fabulous upcoming titles. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting our titles, and have a great day. Over to Kelly.
Hi, Margaret. Good to see you. All right. So hi, I'm Kelly Coyle-Crivelli from Penguin Random House Library Marketing. I am not good at going fast, but I'm going to try my best. All right. Next slide. Just going to put in the chat if you'd like to join us for our next morning book buzz, September 7th. We'll give you a sneak peek at all the upcoming fall titles. Next. And our next library lunch and learn, which is always fun, a good focus on nonfiction, is our culinary edition on October 3rd. Next. And oh, don't forget to check out our horror sampler, where we have excerpts of all the really exciting horror titles that have just come out. And we hope you will dip into this excerpt. Next, sorry. All right, on to the books. The first book is called The Magic Kingdom, and it's a novel by Russell Banks. This is very exciting. And you'll see today that we have a little bit of everything. From one of America's most beloved storytellers, a profound novel about belief, betrayal, and the transformation of one corner of the country. In 1971, a speculator named Harley Mann begins recording his life story onto a reel-to-reel machine. Reflecting on his childhood in the early 20th century, Harley recounts that after his father's sudden death, his family migrated down to Florida's swamplands, mere miles away from what would become Disney World, to join a community of Shakers. Led by Elder John, a generous man with a mysterious past, the colony devoted itself to labor, faith, and charity, rejecting all temptations that lay beyond the property. As Harley dictates his story across more than half a century, meditating on youth, falling in love, Florida's ever-changing landscape, and the search for an American utopia, the truth about Elder John and the Shakers comes to light, clarifying the past and the present alike. This is a dazzling tapestry of love and faith, memory and imagination, and questions what it means to look back and accept one's place in history. Next. From an author you may have heard of, we have an exciting new book coming from Michelle Obama, and it's called The Light We Carry. And of course, we're very excited about this. In an inspiring follow-up to her critically acclaimed #1 best-selling memoir, Becoming, former First Lady Michelle Obama shares practical wisdom and powerful strategies for staying hopeful and balanced in today's highly uncertain world. There may be no tidy solutions or pithy answers to life's big challenges, but Michelle Obama believes that we can all locate and lean on a set of tools to help us better navigate change and remain steady within flux. Michelle Obama offers readers a series of fresh stories and insightful reflections on change, challenge, and power, including her belief that when we light up for others, we can illuminate the richness and potential of the world around us. She says, and I quote, "When we are able to recognize our own light, we become empowered to use it. The light we carry inspires readers to examine their own lives, identify their own sources of gladness, and connect meaningfully in a turbulent world." This is going to be a really inspiring book I think we all need right now. Next is a debut author. This one looks so fun, and it's for fans of Una Out of Order and In 5 Years. It's about the time traveler's wife meets Una out of order in this imaginative and moving debut novel about love more powerful than time. Isla has fled the city for a small town in Missouri in the wake of a painful and exhausting year. With her chronic anxiety at fever pitch, the last thing she expects is to meet a genuine romantic prospect, and she doesn't. But she does get a text from a man who seems to think he's her husband. Obviously, it's the wrong number, except when she points this out. The mysterious texter sends back a picture of them on their wedding day. Melissa Barron's debut time-crossed romance features a quintessentially endearing and brave protagonist and an engrossing plot that will keep you turning pages until its breathtaking finish. I'm really excited about that one. Next up, we have A Dangerous Business, a novel by the lovely Jane Smiley. And we all know how wonderful she writes. And this one is no different. It's Monterey, it's 1851. And ever since her husband was killed in a bar fight, Eliza Ripple has been working in a brothel. It seems like a better life, at least at first. The madam, Mrs. Parks, is kind. The men are relatively well behaved. And Eliza has attained what few women have, financial security. But when the dead bodies of young women start appearing outside of her town, a darkness descends that she can't resist confronting. Eliza and Jane are determined not just to survive, but to find their way in a lawless town on the fringes of the Wild West. As Mrs. Park says, everyone knows that this is a dangerous business, but between you and me, being a woman is a dangerous business, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Next, The House in the Pines by Anna Rees. This is going to be another one that's going to be so fun. We love these suspenseful reads lately. Sorry, hold on one second. Lost my spot. Weeks. All right. A debut thriller about the subtlety of memory and manipulation, in which a young woman must find her way back to a New England cabin armed with only hazy, haunting memories and a half-written book by the father in Guatemala she never knew, to finally uncover the truths that could save her. Maya was a high school senior when her best friend Aubrey mysteriously dropped dead in front of the enigmatic man named Frank, who they'd been hanging around with all summer. 7 years later, Maya has moved to Boston, and she's got gaps in her memories and time, but her past comes rushing back when she comes across a recent YouTube video in which a young woman suddenly keels over and dies in a diner while sitting across from none other than Frank. Plunged back into the trauma that has defined her life, Maya heads back to the Berkshires and her hometown to try to figure out what's happening with her past. And before too long, all roads lead back to Frank's cabin. This is going to be utterly unique and captivating and keep you guessing about whether we can ever fully confront the past and return home. Next up is The Age of Vice. This is another one we think you're all going to love. We tried to pick out just the best ones from the fall. The Age of Vice, where money, pleasure, and power are everything, and the family ties that can bind can also kill. New Delhi, 3 a.m. A speeding Mercedes jumps the curb, and in the blink of an eye, 5 people are dead. It's a rich man's car, but when the dust settles, there is no rich man at all. Just a shell-shocked servant who cannot explain the strange series of events that led to this crime. Nor can he foresee the dark drama that is about to unfold. Deftly shifting through time and perspective in contemporary India, Age of Vice is an epic, action-packed story propelled by the seductive wealth, startling corruption, and bloodthirsty violence of the Wadia family. Loved by some, loathed by others, feared by all. Equal parts crime thriller and family saga. It's an intoxicating novel of gangsters, lovers, false friendship, forbidden romance, and the consequences of corruption. It is a binge-worthy entertainment at its literary best. Last from me is Rough Sleepers, Dr. Jim O'Connell's urgent mission to bring healing to homeless people. This is from Tracy Kidder. This is an important book for us. The powerful story of an inspiring doctor who made a difference by helping to create a program to care for Boston's homeless community. And this is by, of course, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Mountains Beyond Mountains. Nearly 40 years ago, Jim O'Connell graduated from Harvard Medical School and was nearing the end of his residency at Massachusetts General Hospital. The chief of medicine made a proposal. Would Jim defer a prestigious fellowship and spend a year as a doctor to homeless citizens? Jim took the job because he felt he couldn't refuse, but that year turned into his life's calling, to serve the city's unhoused population, especially the rough sleepers, people who sleep on the rough streets. In Rough Sleepers, we meet some of the people Dr. O'Connell has cared for over the years, including Tony, a protector of the others on the streets, and Joanne, who spent many years on the streets and now lectures each new Harvard Medical School class, offering them a rough sleeper's view of what makes a good doctor. Tracy Kidder is a master of reporting and nonfiction storytelling, and this book is going to show people empathy and show friendship of citizens that you would not ever expect. We're excited about that one in January. And that is all from me. Thank you so much. We'll put the link to all these titles in the chat, and on to Brad. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brad Fish. I'm here at IPG Independent Publishers Group. You're home to more than 1,000 US and international publishers with more than 100,000 titles in both English and Spanish. Next. Paramola, Victory for Ukraine. This is a graphic novel anthology. It releases on September 27th. Next. This is technically a YA title, but it's a crossover for adults who may be interested in the Ukraine and Russia war, but don't want to pick up a traditional nonfiction book, and adults with English as a second language to give access to this information. Next. These are 9 short stories. This is a 100% Ukraine-based project, and it covers the Ukraine war, and it features the largest military attack this side of World War II. The ebook did release yesterday as part of Ukraine's Independence Day. And again, that print releases September 27th. A partial of the sales benefit the Razom for Ukraine nonprofit group, and that directly supports people in Ukraine. Next. Lost in Time by A.G. Riddle. This science fiction time travel murder mystery, written by former self-published Amazon author who has more than 3 million books sold. In a future time, the worst criminals, murderers, and evil humans don't go to jail. They are sent back in time 200 million years ago to survive on their own. And yes, they must face off against dinosaurs. Next. I read this book on vacation, and I have to tell you, I really could not put this down. And Jerry has moved to our head of Zeus publisher, and now we're going to be released and published through us. So we look forward to more of his future novels. Next. Mystic Wind, a legal thriller by debut author James Barretto from Ocean View Publishing, releasing on September 6th. Next, the story is set in Boston, Mystic River, by local author attorney who's now a national TV legal analyst. This book 1 of the Jack Marino series. Jack is a former prosecutor turned corporate attorney living the good life, money, privilege, and heiress wife, and he's got a comfortable life and no self-respect. So he returns to his criminal background past as a defense counsel in a capital murder case. He's facing off against a powerful criminal network and government corruption. This is for fans of John Grisham and Scott Turow. Next. Better Homes and Gardens, the 100th anniversary edition of the new cookbook. Familiar red plaid cover, releases October 25th from Better Homes and Gardens and IPG. Next. 736-page expanded edition includes all new chapters that include Behind the Kitchen Door, featuring the first country's test kitchen, and Then and Now section, which compares original classics to updated recipes with new flavors and current food trends. Next. More than 1,000 recipes with a photo for each one. Next, the new cookbook features traditional dishes such as brownies, but new ones as well, like cold brew coffee. The classic and new reference sections are still included. things like spice blends, measurements, meat cuts, and so on. Next, The Modern Hippie Table by Lauren Thomas, on sale October 25th from Collective Book Studio. Next, 224 beautiful pages featuring recipes and menus for eating simply and living beautifully. Easy to prepare recipes, simple to create decorating ideas, and a focus on casual elegance. Next, gorgeous full color interiors. The recipes use fresh fruits and vegetables and quality prepared ingredients like jarred pizza sauce and bottled salad dressings to create mouth-watering meals your family is sure to love. Next. Prince on Prince, Interviews and Encounters, edited by Arthur Lizzie. This is from our own Chicago Review Press. This releases November 15th in trade paperback. Next, this 400-page collection is part of our Musicians in Their Own Words series. It's based on multiple format reference that includes interviews and articles. And this presents a view that Prince himself tried to focus on throughout his life based on his own presentation, thoughts, and ideas. Next. The year's best sports writing, 2022, edited by J.A. Dond and Glenn Stout, on sale October 4th. Next, this 384-page trade paperback is the essential anthology of the finest sports journalism this past year. Captures enduring moments, celebrating the craft of writing at its most sublime, and features the sports, the competitors, and the cultures that they're embedded in. Next. Our IPG catalogs and digital review copies are featured, of course, on Edelweiss and NetGalley. Next. And you can reach out to me for any questions or any additional information. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brad. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. It's my very first ALMA Book Buzz. My name is Anastasia Scott, pronouns she, her, and I'm the new sales manager for school and library at Chronicle Books, reporting to you live from San Francisco, where Chronicle is based. So I'm excited to share a few fall highlights from our adult list today, and I'm going to start by making you hungry. Enter Homage, recipes and stories from an Amish soul food kitchen. So from renowned chef Chris Scott, who you might know from his stint on Top Chef, comes a first of its kind, richly narrative cookbook that celebrates an underexplored foodway in the African diaspora, Amish soul food. In Homage, Chris shares the story of his own family, which spans 7 generations via comforting dishes and vivid narratives, from his enslaved ancestors to his great-grandfather who migrated to Pennsylvania after the Emancipation Proclamation, to his own childhood growing up in Amish country, and ultimately his successful restaurant career in Philly and New York City. If you flip through the next 2 slides, you'll see some recipes here. The book includes 100 dishes born of a unique blend of Southern, German, and Dutch cuisines, including chicken fried steak with sassafras country gravy, charred radicchio salad with roasted grapes and shaved Amish cheddar, and the recipe I wish that I was eating while we were on this call, which is Johnny cakes with apple butter. How good does that sound? This is an area of cuisine that never has really been highlighted before in a cookbook, but the recipes are fresh spins on recognizable, delicious dishes that will appeal to anyone who loves Southern, soul, and German, Dutch, or Scandinavian cuisine. It's also a novel read for foodies who like regional or narrative cookbooks rich with history and visuals. Check it out. Next on the cookbook list, we have the Herbivorous Butcher Cookbook, 75 plus recipes for plant-based meats and all the dishes you can make with them. So I want everyone to think of any go-to American meat-focused cookbook. And now imagine it vegan. From the Guamini brother-sister duo behind the acclaimed beloved vegan butcher shop, the Herbivorous Butcher, here are 75 innovative recipes for plant-based meats and standout vegan dishes. These are butcher shop classics, but so much healthier, such as pork chops, ground beef, and chicken cutlets that taste and chew as good as the real thing. It's perfect for vegans as well as anyone who's trying to eat less meat. Whether for health or political or environmental convictions, more and more people are eating less meat and embracing alternative proteins. The Herbivorous Butcher Cookbook offers achievable recipes for making meat substitutes at home with easily found ingredients, as well as recipes for delicious dishes: cherry glazed rib rack, Nashville hot popcorn chicken, Kale's very fine lasagna, BLT couscous crust quiche, using these homemade meat substitutes, but you could even use store-bought alternatives like Beyond Burger if you're in a pinch. If you flip through the next 2 slides, you'll see some more recipes. And a bit about the authors. Siblings Aubrey and Cale Walsh opened the Herbivorous Butcher in 2016, which quickly gained a cult following in their local Minneapolis and beyond. Their products are now sold in regional Whole Foods locations, and they ship a wide range of products to all 50 states and Puerto Rico. Their fans have been begging for their recipes, and here they are for the very first time in this book. All right, our next title is one for the history buffs. I Can't Wait to Call You My Wife: African-American Letters of Love, Marriage, and Family in the Civil War Era by Rita Roberts. Amidst bloody battles, thousands of African Americans spent the Civil War trying to hold their families together. This extremely moving book illuminates that struggle through the letters that they exchanged. Despite harsh laws against literacy and brutal practices that broke apart Black families, against all odds, people found ways to write to each other. In these pages, readers will meet parents who are losing hope of ever seeing their children again, and a husband who walks 15 miles to visit his wife, enslaved on a different plantation. Next slide, please. But the collection, it also features, tender moments of courtship letters exchanged between Lewis Henry Douglass and Helen Amelia Logan, who were both children of noted abolitionists, as well as letters sent home by young women who traveled south to teach literacy to escaped slaves. Author Rita Roberts is a historian and a professor of history and Africana studies at Scripps College, and her expert curation allows readers to see the wider historical context of these documents. Roberts reframes the Civil War era by telling the story of American slavery through personal accounts. And by focusing on the strong bonds of love that these letters represent, she offers a deeply human and relatable version of history. As Americans are waking up to the complex legacy of race in our country, Roberts' book challenges a notion of a monolithic Black experience during the Civil War. Next. Readers can connect with history directly by reading actual words from the time and seeing photographs of both the letters and the writers. While intense and often tragic, the stories also carry inspiration for how to live and love through incredibly difficult times. This is a book we'd all benefit from reading, and it will make a truly meaningful addition to any book collection. Finally, from our lifestyle list, we're excited to publish Nature Swagger: Stories and Visions of Black Joy in the Outdoors by Rue Mapp. Nature Swagger is an exquisite combination of beautiful photography and compelling stories from Outdoor Afro founder Rue Mapp that showcases Black joy and strength in spaces from which Black people have either historically been excluded or less represented, and makes for an inventive and uplifting celebration of Black joy in nature. If you haven't heard of Outdoor Afro, they're a leading national organization focused on the promotion of Black involvement and interaction with the outdoors that organizes fun outdoor programming across the country. I highly urge you to check out your local chapters. Their powerful work is leaving positive, lasting effects on the Black community and broader conservation community. Founder and author Rue Mapp is an inspiring voice who's captured the attention of everyone from Michelle Obama to NPR to the New York Times, Atlantic, Essence, Forbes, many more. Oprah even flew out to Oakland to go on a hike with her. Next slide, please. Nature Swagger combines inspiring stories, profiles, and spotlights from Outdoor Afro group members, prominent Black leaders in outdoor spaces, and other organizations. This book inspires Black communities to reclaim their place in the natural world. Interspersed throughout are essays from Mapp on the rich history of Black involvement in the outdoors, activism, and conservation, as well as resources for readers who want to deepen their own connection with the elements. This collection is the perfect read for anyone looking to heal in these sacred natural spaces. Next slide, please. And next slide. And that's all I've got for you. So again, I'm new to this role, but I would love to hear from any of you. So please don't hesitate to get in touch with feedback, questions about our books, or best of all, just to say hello. And be sure to find Chronicle Books on NetGalley, Edelweiss, and all those other internet places where people hang out. Thanks for your time, and over to Allison.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Croy. I work with the Consortium brand of books, Consortium Book Sales and Distribution, Ingram brand. I will be speaking for Allison in today's presentation. Thanks for hanging in there. I know it's been a long presentation, but I've got a couple of spectacular books I don't want you to miss out on. The first is Case Study by Graham McCrae Burnett. His previous book, His Bloody Project, sold 120,000 copies in English, 20,000 of them in the US. It was a New York Times Editor's Choice, was named the best book of 2016 by Newsweek, NPR, The Guardian, The Telegraph, and The Sunday Times. It had pretty much global embrace of how well it was written. If you love books with unreliable narrators, this one is for you. It's absolutely a mesmerizing book. A young woman investigating her sister's suicide creates an alter ego as a pseudonym patient, Rebecca Smythe. She makes an appointment with a psychotherapist whom she believes is either related or responsible for her sister's death. There's a terrific, barely concealed thread of menace that runs throughout this entire book. You just don't know what's going to happen next. It's got great pacing. It's got a creepy narrative that keeps you guessing up until the very end. It reminds me a lot of Flaubert's Parrot by Julian Barnes, Ian McEwan's Atonement, or even better, Ian McEwan's On Chesil Beach, which was just a fantastic book. If you like books like that, please pick up a copy of Case Study by Graham Burnett. Next slide, please. The Pachinko Parlor by Lisa Chua Dusapin. So our author she was a winner of the 2021 National Book Award for Translated Literature. She is born in France. She was born in France to a French father and a Korean mother, and she currently lives in Switzerland. So talk about somebody with a global perspective. She writes in French about South Korea. So the multinaturalism I think will appeal to a lot of readers. The story is based on the story of Claire, who lives in Tokyo, and she divides her time between tutoring a 12-year-old Mieko in an apartment in an abandoned hotel and lying on the floor at her grandparents' apartment, daydreaming and playing Tetris and listening to the sounds of the street above. There's a plan for Claire to visit Korea with her grandparents. They fled when the civil war there was going on over 50 years ago and haven't been back since. When they first arrived in Japan, they opened up a shiny new pachinko parlor, which provides a colorful backdrop to the narrative. It is a very short book. It can be read quickly, and I think it will invite multiple reads because it is paced with such a great internal dialogue that fills the quiet, unspoken spaces of conversations not had with family that need to be had with family. It's just a fantastic quick read, very nuanced, and I think it bears reading and rereading. Next slide, please. For fans of Outlander, we've got a book of murder and treachery. It's very commercial, set in 16th century Scotland. Mary, Queen of Scots, is forced to abdicate in favor of her infant son. She has to rely on her coterie of ladies in waiting for solace, namely a woman named Marie, whose nephew is seeking to have a son after the birth of another daughter and is poised to take action in order to secure an heir. It's all based on historical facts. The Green Lady has it all for historical fiction fans: intrigue, power dynamics, barely disguised spite, duplicitous family members. It's just pure commercial catnip. A great fun read. She is a leading author in the UK and a former section editor for the Sunday Times. And that's for your historical fiction fans. Next slide, please. It wouldn't be a consortium presentation without some poetry. We always have, I feel like, the best poetry list that is out there. This is Your Emergency Contact Has Experienced an Emergency by Chen Chen. This is the second collection from Chen Chen, and he continues his investigation of family, both blood and those that you choose, and examines what one inherits from one and what one invents. As a queer Asian American living through an era of Trump, mass shootings, and COVID-19 pandemic, he is looking for family and home for a restless soul. There's early endorsements from Ilya Kaminsky, Victoria Chang, and Tracy K. Smith. He's also the author. The prior book that he wrote was When I Grow Up, I Want to Be, a list of further possibilities. So I think he absolutely wins the author with the best titles award. Last but not least, from Scribe is Jan Morris, Life from Both Sides. This is a fantastic, far-reaching 608-page biography of Jan Morris. When she passed away in 2020, she was considered one of Britain's best loved writers, author of Venice, Pax Britannica, Conundrums, and more than 50 other books. Her work was known for its observational genius, lyricism, and humor, and earned her a passionate readership around the world. Morris's life was no less fascinating than her oeuvre. Born James Humphrey Morris in 1826, she spent her childhood amongst Oxford's Gothic beauty and military service in Italy and the Middle East, which were followed by a career as an internationally vetted foreign correspondent. Far from being the only journalist on a path to the first ascent of Mount Everest in 1953, she also covered the trial of Adolf Eichmann. Her reportage spanned many of the 20th century's defining moments before she became a novelist. Her public success maxed a private dilemma that was only resolved when she transitioned genders in the late 1960s, becoming renowned as a transgender pioneer. It's a fascinating life story of an incredible life that's lived through as a novelist, but also as a journalist. Just a fantastic book, and it's really, really an interesting introduction into the life of Jan Morris. And that is all we have from Consortium Books for the presentation today. I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging in. And if you have any requests for galleys, please reach out to Allison Haberstroh at ingramcontent.com, and we're happy to send you over some galleys and some reads.
Well, thank you everybody for being here today. We super appreciate it. You will get an email from me in the next day or two that has the link to the video of this presentation, the Edelweiss collection link, some more information, but we really appreciate you tuning in and taking the time out of your day. Thank you so much. Take care. You did it.